All right, welcome everybody to our June 21st Committee of the Whole meeting. This is a board meeting where we will be reviewing some of our items that are going to be coming up at our July board meeting. So we are not taking any action tonight. We are just reviewing and asking questions of some upcoming items. But before we get started, I'm going to do roll call and starting with Director Sproul.
Here.
Director Smith.
Here.
Director Zavala.
Here.
And I am also here. So we do have quorum. Director Decker is not going to be able to join us tonight, but we do have 4 of the 5 directors. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Dr. Snell to lead us through our agenda for tonight.
Thank you, Director Barros. It's good to see everyone. Happy first day of summer. Like it feels like summer out there today. The sun shines out and we had a great end of the school year, and I'll just give you some updates. While I pull up my screen, I just want to make sure everyone's aware that we do have an on-site meeting location if people are wanting to participate in our meetings in person. Or in Zoom, they're able to do that. So at the Bates Center, we have that open, and this is being shown on the screens there this evening. And then also we have an introduction tonight. Sylvia Navarro will be taking over for Aaron Bierschmidt as executive assistant to the board and superintendent. So congratulations to Sylvia. And welcome to the team. Director Sylvia is going to do some outreach with you over the summer so you get a chance to know her and she gets a chance to know you and how to best support you moving forward. So Sylvia, could you say hello just so we can see you by unmuting? Otherwise it won't come up. If you unmute and say one word, then it'll come on the screen and then everybody will be able to see.
Hello, I'm Sylvia.
Thanks, Sylvia. Welcome. So tonight I have some information in the superintendent report, and then I'll turn it over to Brett for the contract review. Wanted to talk about a few things tonight. One is just the end of year wrap up. Second thing is the leadership transition team. We have a report that I'm going to submit to you formally tonight and give you some highlights of that. And then a quick update on pandemic planning and response, and then get into our contract review. And then I know the board does have an executive session tonight, and so we'll turn that over at the end to Director Barros again to set that up. So just end of the year wrap up. First of all, graduation, like awesome, right? We had 1,340 graduates this year, over $3.1 million in scholarships. Some other data points here around the students and how they applied for scholarships and where they're going. Just an incredible season of graduation. You know, I think just in particular, the staff that runs these graduations from the school to the district level to our hosts at the various locations around the county, just amazing people doing amazing work to help celebrate these students. A couple images here from the graduations. One, I think Director Barros took from her vantage point on the stage at Skyview's graduation. I love that student. He was just getting ready to tell them to turn their tassels, I think, and throw the hats into the air. So incredible experience to walk the class of 2022 across the stage. I know that you all, this is why you serve as a board director, to have these students have these experiences and be empowered to leave us and go change the world in whatever way they want, right? And pursue whatever dream that they want. So a huge thank you to our board for being at these graduations. Like, I don't, like everybody who goes to their one graduation only sees that, but we had 8 or 9 graduations that you were all present at, and really making it feel each one how special it was. So thank you so much for that. Lots of celebration and credit to all the staff, students, and families for the journey. The superintendent transition team report, you all have spent at least a couple sessions with us over the course of the year. I just wanted to remind the public that what this was and what our outcomes were, and then give an update to the board before we submit the written report to you. So What our outcomes were to look at the data collected through your hiring of me and into this first school year about what were the opportunities that stakeholders saw in the district. And then using that data to identify 3 to 4 short-term goals for the transition, monitor the progress, and then ultimately connect those goals to a larger strategic planning process that we're going to embark on in the next school year. In addition to those outcomes, it was also really important to build a collaborative team. And so we partnered with our labor leaders, we engaged with parents, students, we did outreach to community leaders, higher ed leaders. We compiled a team of about 25 to 30 individuals on any given night. We met monthly and really kind of worked through that process of meeting those outcomes on the other page. So it was pretty cool to be a part of that process. The feedback that people shared was really powerful, that they not only enjoyed helping me identify some goals, but also just getting to know each other. These were the photos from one of our sessions, and I think they really captured the collaboration. So I was really grateful for all their time that they spent and your time in coming and observing. So I did, one of the things that we had talked about was documenting the process and trying to understand, like, what did we learn from this? And so we have done some interviews of people that served on the team, and I'm just going to share 2-3 minutes of their feedback. I think it's more powerful than just hearing from me about the experience, and then they'll produce a larger kind of story about this process and what we learned through it and what the goals were. So I'm going to go ahead and share that with you now. And if that's coming up, just give me a thumbs up if you hear the audio. Yeah, okay.
So the superintendent transition team was composed of a pretty broad range of stakeholders, both from within the district and from within the Vancouver community that have direct and peripheral connection to students, staff, and kind of the district as a whole.
We're all a part of the community, and if our goal is to produce lifelong learners and effective community members who are contributing to society, then we need to recognize our community for what it is.
So the intention was for us to come together and give Superintendent Snell some guidance around what we're hearing in our respective corners of the community and how we might direct or lead him in leading the district according to community member need and interest.
I heard a lot of people talk about the importance of the superintendent, any superintendent, in communication and trust. Building both a really solid communication structure and having that based on a foundation of trust and respect.
One of the priorities for me was that there's a circular loop of communication between the district and the students. It's not just the district telling the students what's happening, but the students are also telling the district what they'd like to happen. That was at the front of my mind.
The transition team has done a really good job of being able to not just hear those stories, but put a plan in place to address some of the issues that's been going on.
Kindergarten to 12th grade, what they're getting is consistent, coherent, and aligned because everybody's on the same page. They know what the goals are, and they know what activities the district is engaging in to get there.
It is kind of imperative, especially within the district, that the district staff see that it's being implemented, and the students.
The students are the main focus of the district. Without the students, you don't have a district. And so I think it's very important for a superintendent, especially Dr. Snell, to be able to listen to those students and be able to incorporate that feedback. I think without that feedback, you don't really know what you're doing to the fullest extent. And I think being able to know your community by listening to them is a great way to do that.
So awesome that they would share and reflect on their experience. And so we'll have more to share later as that continues to, we interview more people and try to tell the story of this. This slide is way too busy, but more for a reference point. The team did identify 4 goals and themed those goals: communication, relationships, students, and vision. And they identified a goal statement, and then they also helped me identify metrics. So it's one thing to say that we want to improve in this area, but then we asked, okay, so what would success look like? And how do we monitor if we're making progress on that? And so you'll see on the left side of this slide are the goals, and then on the right side are the metrics that they identified and whether we met those metrics or not. The last goal, the vision goal, really was about carrying forward what we learned in the process, the importance of relationships and trust, as you heard articulated in the statements that you heard, the importance of student voice, the broader community and how that comes together. The team thought it was really important to carry that forward into the strategic planning process. And so that vision statement is really about leveraging this year into next. And the other three had specific metrics to this year. One of the other things, themes that came up was decision-making and the importance of decision-making and clarity around who makes the decision, how we get input, what kinds of decisions come to the board level, what kinds of decisions are empowered at the school level or the classroom level. And so this was a document that captured some of the thinking that the superintendent transition team put together. So it just talks about like, how do we explore an opportunity? And then what happens if we either implement that opportunity or reject that idea? How do we get stakeholder feedback? Who are the possible stakeholders and what does that look like? So this is just, doesn't claim to be the answer to all this, but more of a starting point for the conversation. And then I know part of the strategic plan needs to investigate this as well as processes for how we gather input and how we collectively make decisions. So that's it in a nutshell. You know, I shared with you as a board last week kind of the website that's hosting this that allows you to go deeper. And then the written report that, you know, it's about 10 pages long, so it's not necessarily light reading, but as an opportunity to brief the board on the work of this team. And just huge shout out to the team members. Like they were just amazing, coming, you know, on an evening for a couple hours to work together. And so really proud of the team, really proud of the work they've done, and I'm really excited to carry it forward into the strategic planning process. And so I'll pause here before I get into the last item and see if there's any questions or comments from board directors. I'm seeing head nods that you guys are good with what we've shared. Okay, so I'm going to keep this moving. I'm very short and brief on the public health situation. We talked about this in our last meeting, that OSPI and the Department of Health have said that if there are going to be any changes to mitigation strategies that are required or suggested in schools, that they will let us know sooner than later, recognizing that we'll all be starting school somewhere in the Labor Day area. So we'll continue to monitor that. Our case rates have continued to kind of take a little downwards trend, but it's pretty clear that we have a lot of cases in the community through our school notifications. Those are starting to taper down now that school is out, but they were pretty high there for a while. We're just glad to have gotten through the year with this, to be honest. Like there was a lot going on with it. The changes that happened over the course of the year, the vaccination requirement for staff and volunteers, a lot to navigate, and just huge shout out to our team that was supporting staff at the school level and central office. And then our families and students for being so understanding of the circumstances to allow us to be in person this year. So and then finally, thanks to you all for staying the course and giving us direction around these, you know, circumstances. Our hope is that, you know, we're kind of in just a new norm, and this is the way we operate, and we're going to be able to provide in-person services, but also want to be on alert. So that is the superintendent report this evening. Again, I'll pause before I go into the contract to make sure if the contract section, to see if there's any questions from board directors. Okay, got head nods on everybody, so we're good to go. At this point, I'm going to pull up the board docs and actually I need to, I don't need to reload it. Well, maybe I do. So if you're watching at home right now, I'll share my screen. I'll show you how you can navigate to this. This is on our district website, and it's under the school board section, and this board docs area, if you click on it, you can go to any of our past meetings. And of course, we're in 2022 in the June 21st meeting. And Brett, I will turn it over to you to do our contract review. Just a reminder to board directors that we do have staff available to answer questions this evening, but we also are collecting questions to answer prior to the July 12th meeting. So it might be that you ask a question that we want to do a little more research and provide a more thorough response to you. But we do have staff ready to address any questions that come up potentially as well. So with that, Brett, are you ready?
I am, thank you. So let's see, we can just dive right in here. We have a couple right off the top that are very similar in nature, so I'll kind of talk about those together and then pause for questions. As you all likely remember, we do look to engage in contract service providers to fortify our staff when we're not able to fill some of the more difficult to fill positions, particularly in our special services department. And so the first recommendation we have tonight is to renew our client staffing agreement with Pioneer Healthcare Services. They provide SLPs, OTs, and PTs as we need them to, again, augment the staff that we attempt to hire internally whenever possible. This allows us to meet the students' IEP goals when those internal hires are not possible. We're estimating this contract with Pioneer to possibly hit $120,000 for 2022-23. And then similarly, we have a recommendation to approve a renewal of a ProCare therapy contract. They also provide SLPs, OTs, PTs, as well as psychologists, registered behavior technicians. And again, we prefer to hire those positions internally, but to the extent that it's necessary, this is a safety net for us to meet the IEP goals of our students. The estimated amount of the ProCare therapy is $108,000 for the next school year. Any questions on either of those special services, safety net kind of service providers? All right, then we'll move right ahead to a recommendation to adopt resolution number 889. This is an annual process that you may remember from about this time last year. Whenever we have updates to staff, specifically in administrative roles, we need to update this resolution, which delegates the authority for certain staff members in administrative roles to sign contracts and POs and basically make obligations as operational needs present themselves on behalf of the district. Again, routine in terms of the format and content is very similar to previous years. We just have some new names that we're welcoming to the team. Question on that resolution to delegate that signing authority? All right, we'll move ahead to another resolution, number 890, that we're recommending that you approve in July. This is a regular but not annual process every 6 years, although there was a delay and extension granted by the county and city this time. So I think it's been 7 years since the board has been asked to act on this. But as part of our compliance with Growth Management Act, and it also allows us to access impact fees from development, both in our city limits properties and schools that serve those properties and our unincorporated Clark County areas. So the interesting thing, I guess, is as it relates to this renewal, because again, the largest impact for us of this work is the collection of impact fees. There was actually a slight decrease, and I apologize, there was a wording on the recommendation that was missed. The single family impact fee will slightly decrease from 2008.80 cents in 2015 to 2007.86 The multifamily is increasing slightly from $2,381.93 to $2,486.64. And again, that's a very complicated formula, but the best I can do to summarize is although construction costs have escalated dramatically, the fact that we were able to pass a bond and get a state grant from OSPI to fund some classroom additions to augment our bond program, specifically in the elementary school with that OSPI grant. We have to demonstrate a need based on projected enrollments and capacity at all of our buildings. And with our enrollment dropping recently more dramatically as a result of the pandemic and us building classrooms, there wasn't as much demand, which is a good thing, and justification for impact fees. We are forecasting there are a couple boundary areas where we will be stressed, specifically Ogden and Sacagawea. So they are driving the renewal of the impact fees. Again, it's a lengthy document that goes through all the growth management aspects that the county and city require before they approve it. So after you approve it, we'll submit it to their governing bodies for their approval. And then that will, in essence, put the plan in place. I guess the last thing that I'll highlight before I pause is impact fees go directly into our capital projects fund, and they're very restrictive in terms of just providing for facility enhancements to serve additional students. So what drives the impact fee collection is the forecast of needed capacity for student growth, and that's all we can spend it on is those facilities, not operational costs. So with that, I will pause if there's any questions on that lengthy description of Resolution 890. All right, I appreciate you guys bearing with us. We're getting there. Now we have a couple athletic clothing recommendations, so maybe I'll go through those together. Our recommendation is to approve contract number 2019-045-4, and it is a solicitation from various vendors to provide a fixed markup on manufacturer pricing for athletic clothing supplies. This particular recommendation is a renewal of previously bid. I think it's the 4th year of the up to 5-year renewal of that bid. The general fund and primarily ASB funds are used to purchase the items that are solicited here. And let's see, a couple other details. Frank Basher Supplies and Rydell All-American, are the vendors that have been responsive to this bid and the pricing terms. We estimate that with this particular contract, it would be about $150,000 a year for that recommendation. And then I'll jump just real quickly into the Adidas athletic clothing supply recommendation, and that was contract number 2020-013-3. And again, similarly, we go out and solicit from vendors using kind of a prescriptive pricing structure. This particular contract has been served by Cloud9 Sports. And our estimate is that that will be about $150,000 next year to meet the needs in there, which again are also funded by ASB funds and some general funds. Any questions on those two athletic clothing and supply renewals? All right, I'll keep us moving here to a recommendation to award bid number 2022-020. This is for food and supply products for our school cafeterias and kitchens. As you've read, there were 7 different categories of food and food service products that we solicited bids for. I won't read all of the details because the recommendation gets into a fair amount of detail. These will be paid for out of general funds, again, in our nutrition service program. And it is our recommendation as a result of this bid number 2022-020 that we award the bid for frozen, dry, and refrigerated goods in the amount of $2.2 million or $2,200,546.06 to McDonald's Wholesale Company. We would also recommend that McDonald's be awarded the dairy, butter, cheese, sour cream, yogurt in the amount of $202,062.64, and also non-food supplies in the amount of $126,514.24. And then lastly, for McDonald's, we would recommend that the kindergarten snack program in the amount of $13,212.52 be awarded to McDonald's. Goody Man Distribution also responded, and their bid was selected for or recommended for bread and baked goods in the amount of $176,275. Dairy Fresh Farms responded to the solicitation for dairy, milk, sour cream, and yogurt in the amount of $340,486.60. And Washington State sales tax will be applied to all non-food products. And then lastly, as a non-financial or non-fixed pricing, excuse me, McDonald's wholesale would be our recommendation for handling our USDA commodities. So again, a lot of detail going on there, but in support of our nutrition service program, are there any questions on the awards relating to that bid effort? Okay, so you may remember a few months ago in March, you were asked to approve an action plan to mitigate drinking water outlets that exceed the limits that were recently approved by the Washington State Legislature and codified in RCW 28A 210-410. This recommendation to award quotation number 2022-021 is the actual mitigation work that is the result of that action plan that was approved. This would be funded out of the general fund, and it's our recommendation that we award quotation number 2022-021 to JRT Mechanical, and in the amount of $72,916 plus Washington State sales tax. And if you didn't have a chance to read the entire packet, I'm not sure how much was even attached. That'll replace 109 fixtures at 17 sites to bring us in compliance with the new higher standards that the legislature approved last session. Questions on the drinking water mitigation contract? All right. Then we'll move into our recommendation to award bid number 2022-024 for asbestos abatement at Hudson's Bay High School. We were pleased to get 3 bids on this one, which is a successful bid in this environment by any account. The preferred vendor that we're recommending is Performance Abatement Services, and their bid with one alternative that we're recommending we select would be $102,780 plus Washington State sales tax. Questions on this particular bid? All right, and then we try to group these things together, but unfortunately somehow this one got separated from the other athletic clothing and equipment items. So I won't go into as much detail, but our recommendation is to approve purchase agreement number 2022-027 to BSN Sports. Like the other ones we spoke of earlier, this would be funded by general funds and associated student body funds. And the estimated amount of this particular purchase agreement is $200,000 plus Washington State sales tax. Questions on our straggler for athletic equipment? All right, down to our last couple here. Appreciate you all bearing with us. Next one is our annual recommendation that you approve the declaration of surplus property number 2022-029. Again, this is an annual process by which we ask you to delegate authority to declare certain property, personal property, not real property, that is no longer useful or basically just taking up space in our warehouse and either beyond economic repair or no longer viable with the programming that we provide. And there's some statutes that call for the final disposal of various types, whether it's textbooks or other items. And so again, this is just your annual delegation of that authority, so we don't have to bring a list of items to you every month to be surplused. Questions on that? All right, then finally, we're recommending that you, this is actually a delegation, not a specific award, but with paper being a very volatile commodity type product, we do need to have occasion. We estimate 4 times a year to go out and buy 3 truckloads of paper to restock our warehouse. And so this particular action item would allow, would recommend to you all to delegate the authority for us to go out and solicit those pricings and execute what we expect to be about $75,000 per purchase plus Washington State sales tax. And again, the estimate is there would be 3 to 4 times that we would make these purchases. But this would allow us to react quickly when the need arises, and also knowing market conditions. If we see an opportunity to buy at a good price, we can get the information out to the market very quickly. So the annual cost is estimated to be $300,000 plus Washington State sales tax. Questions on the procurement of paper, multi-purpose paper as needed throughout the year? All right, thank you. I know that's a few more than normal, so I appreciate your patience and dashing through all the details.
Thank you, Brett. Appreciate your attention to the detail on there. And if board directors have follow-up questions, please just let us know, and we'll get that information to you prior to the July 12th meeting. We do have 4 policies for first reading, and I'll invite Marilee just to comment briefly on any of these. One of the policies is connected to a teaching and learning item as well. So Marilee, anything you'd like to highlight with these first readings?
Yes, thank you, Dr. Snell. I'll go through them very quickly and summarize. The first policy is 2140. It's a comprehensive school counseling program policy. And the updates are based on changes made by the legislature during the last legislative session. And those changes require the district to have a comprehensive school counseling program, a counseling program that addresses students' social, emotional, academic, and career development needs. And by next year, the district must develop a written plan for a comprehensive school counseling program. Brian Matheson is on if you have any detailed questions, but basically the policy outlines the major features of a comprehensive program. It states the districts will comply with national and state standards. It also defines the role of a school counselor. So I'm happy to answer any questions about that one. The second policy that's up for your consideration this evening is policy 3420, anaphylaxis prevention and response. The district, through a community partner, was able to get a standing order for EpiPens so that when there is a need, we have undesignated supply to be used at our schools. And these policy changes outline how those undesignated supplies will be used. Do you have any questions about that? Okay. The third policy is policy 3424, and the title of that one is opioid-related overdose reversal. Currently, the district only has reversal medications in their high schools. This policy change would provide supplies in all of our schools, as well as for our DROs to have access to the reversal medication. So we made those changes in the policy. And finally, policy 4200 is parent access and safe and orderly learning environment. The change that we're proposing in this policy is to add the language that exists in statute about parents having access to their child's classroom. This is not new language, but we're putting in the policy to give it more visibility and more clarity, hopefully for our parents about the opportunity for them to access classrooms. Any questions about that one? Thank you.
Thanks, Marilee. We're into the last section of the evening, and this is the teaching and learning section. And the first item is the adoption of the comprehensive school counseling program that is connected to the policy update that Marilee spoke to. Brian, would you like to say just a couple of things about the program and what you're doing to support counselors in moving forward with this?
Sure, thank you for the time. So superintendent directors, this is, as stated, the transition plan, which basically is our district's commitment to implement comprehensive school counseling programs to make sure all students benefit from those programs. And more or less, we use the OSPI recommended template to outline our steps, but we started with our steps immediately this fall. We were able to use some of our ESSER funds to contract with the American School Counselor Association, and they are providing a 2-year training for the school counselors. And we have gone through 2 days of training. We'll have our 3rd day of training coming up in August. And at each point along the way, they build those components of the comprehensive program. In the first couple of trainings, they looked at student data and school improvement plans, panorama data, and identified students that could benefit from the comprehensive program, and wrote annual SMART goals to make sure that students benefit. And they'll go through the next step all the way through August of 2023, where we'll hopefully be able to come back and celebrate some of our successes with students, as well as look at ways that we can continue to grow and improve. So this is well underway, and some formalities by putting it in writing and codifying what is important and what we want to continue doing.
Thank you, Brian. I appreciate that. Are there any questions? Okay. The feedback from counselors about the leadership, including Brian, and supporting them on this journey has been very positive. So we appreciate their support of the teams at the school level. The next teaching and learning items are a series of renewals of products that we've used previously, a combination of different platforms and resources. And so I'll walk through them quickly, and then at the end, if there are any questions about them, we can capture those. The first is about Agile Mind, which is a core curriculum for Algebra 1, Algebra 2, and Geometry. It's a cost of $103,000 in licensing. The second is around the Panorama platform that you've had some presentations this year, and Brian just referenced. In addition to surveying, it also has PD and other supports. And so a resource for teachers in terms of supporting their instruction. A cost of $114,000. The funding source for this year would be ESSER. This likely, if we continue with this platform in the future, would move towards a curriculum budget type of expenditure, but it's directly related to the services that ESSER allows us in terms of supporting students' mental health. The next is a series of instructional and supplemental materials that are included in here. And then we get into some more subscriptions with Newsella, which is a platform that our ELA teachers use that integrates timely topics and puts them at the grade level to allow access for students, pretty popular. Then some iReady math and reading lessons at the elementary level. We have a renewal for Odysseyware, which typically supports our online and Heights campus with the annual renewal services. And again, this is basic ed funding. I forgot to say that on the last couple. Item 8 is to Stride Learning. Again, this is a K-5 online learning for our Heights campus, and an estimated $180,000 out of basic education. And that's the group that's associated with curriculum and renewals subscriptions. And so I'll pause there and see if there are any questions.
I actually have first question in the night, Jeff. I have a question.
Nice, yes.
The Stride learning platform, in the information that was given us, it referenced Success Campus, I think it was called. And I was just curious what is Success Campus?
I'll need to get back to you on that one.
Okay.
Wendy. I could maybe comment, but I wouldn't want to inaccurately do that. So we'll follow up with the K-5 online part, unless there's somebody on the call that would like to take that one on. Brian, would you like to share that one? I saw you unmute.
It's nice to be of use. I believe that is referring to our Success Academies. So in our Success Academies, we have small labs where students are working on credit recovery courses. And so when we have OdysseyWare, we have Heights, Flex, and our Success Academy that use the OdysseyWare / Imagine Learning product. I hope that answers.
You're right. You corrected me. I meant OdysseyWare, but I said Stride Learning.
Yeah, no worries. Yeah, you're all good. Yep.
I have a related question, I guess. I see that OdysseyWare is being used for, I think it was 3 through 12. And then Stride Learning is K through 5, if I remember correctly. And I'm just curious, are we envisioning phasing out OdysseyWare for the lower grades at Heights and replacing it with Stride, or is it going to be like supplementary or complementary to each other?
Yeah, good catch by you. So we had a teacher committee that met throughout the spring. They started meeting in March, as I recall, and went through May. And prior to, we'd used OdysseyWare or Imagine Learning with our younger grades, and the teachers recommended that Stride was a better product. So to better serve the needs of the students, they recommended Stride for those students. And then for the upper grades, we'll have OdysseyWare or Imagine Learning. And so, yeah, it's not ideal to have 2 different products, but that was a teacher recommendation because they felt like the OdysseyWare product was just not meeting the needs of the students. We needed a different product. So now we have for the lower grades and for the upper grades, we pulled those apart.
Yeah, I would say based on personal experience, OdysseyWare for grade 3 at least is still pretty high level in terms of it's a lot of reading.
Yeah.
So that's awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, well, I didn't know you had some personal experience. So yes, yeah, high reading levels. We also had some concerns with our EL students. And so we're working on both of those things. Yeah, thanks for catching and mentioning.
Thank you, Wendy. Thank you, Brian. I appreciate you jumping in on those. Any other questions on the TNL curricular side? Okay, the last item that falls under teaching and learning is an out-of-state travel request, similar to what you've approved in the past with having, and this time it's Skyview High School traveling to a tournament in Phoenix, fingers crossed. We've had some of those canceled and then you've approved future ones. The funding source on this is ASB fundraising, boosters, students and families with a cost estimate of $30,000. So it's more about the permission as opposed to the approving of funding expenditure. So that is the last request. To see if there's any questions about that one or anything else that you would like to loop back to on the agenda. Okay. So, and just as a reminder that just because we talked about it tonight doesn't mean you can't ask questions in the next couple of weeks. As a staff, we would greatly appreciate those questions to help prepare you for the July 12th meeting. Kind of a unique meeting. July is always a little unique because everybody's schedules are a little different. So just let me know if we can support in any way. We do have time set up for you the week of July 5th to talk about the agenda and any other items. We also have a budget committee meeting the week of July 5th with Director Sproul and Director Smith and Brett to start getting ready for the adoption of the 22-23 budget. And then we'll bring the board alongside and then 12th meeting with some high level information. And then we'll do another round of budget committee and meetings prior to the August 12th retreat and board meeting, which I don't want to talk about that now on the first day of summer, but it'll come up on us really quick. And so we want to make sure that the directors feel prepared and understand what we're proposing in the budget. So in addition to the annual approval of the budget, we also have the levy renewal. And so the budget is those two go hand in hand. And so Brett will walk us through some scenarios that we'll need board direction on before we move forward. So with that, Director Barros, I think that concludes our regular agenda for the Committee of the Whole meeting on June 21st. I'll turn it back to you.
Perfect, thank you. Next on the agenda is Board of Directors reports. Do any directors have anything to report? All right, with that, we are going to recess to an executive session. Our executive session is to receive and evaluate complaints or charges brought against employees. We anticipate that we will be in executive session for about 30 minutes. So with that, we are recessed. Again, there will be no action to follow, so I will return once we are finished to adjourn the meeting. So with that, we are in recess. All right, we are back from our executive session, and as I mentioned before, there's no action to follow. So it is 6:49 p.m. and we are adjourned. Thank you, everybody.